Hi, Gene.
Hi, how are you?
All right, how are you? Sorry, my video's off. I'm eating my dinner real quick.
Just letting you guys know we are live on TV. Oh, David is here, but he's on mute.
All right, here we go. Sorry, I was actually trying to open up my agenda. Why don't we call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. And first thing up is I'm actually looking at the chat box and not seeing anything in way of citizen comments. I will recognize at this point that the school committee has received, and myself has received some emails in the past day or so regarding some topics that we'll be talking about tonight. So I feel that recognizing that at this point would be prudent, just for anyone who's out there who is interested in whether or not we received emails. We have, and I just want to make that clear. I'll babble for another second and just give anyone a quick second to hop on chat if there's anything that they want to speak about during the citizens' comments.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Well, now that I can see that there are 31 participants,
Yep.
my question is answered. We got this notice from Vinny, and I just wanted to be sure that that was the same notice as the original meeting. So yeah, okay, great.
I just resent that so it would be at the top of your email.
Appreciate it. Made things much easier.
So nice.
So he obviously knows what all our inboxes look like. Excuse me. Next up, we definitely want to get a, just moving on, want to nominate the Ed Fund for the MASC Outstanding School Partner Award. I know that we've spoken about this the past 2 years, wanting to do this. So I think the only natural thing to do to sort of make sure this happens is to decide a lead from the school committee to actually submit the form. For the first year ever, I actually have the physical form in my possession at my house. So whoever we decide to do that, if you don't have it, I actually have one. That's I know that was a problem because going to the website and actually trying to find it is
Not a problem.
has not been not been easy the past few years. So actually having that is probably very helpful. That does not help. So so yeah, I mean, at this point, I think like I said, this is something that we've wanted to do for a few years. The paperwork itself looked pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if anyone actually wants to take the lead. I think Michelle Horgan automatically takes herself out of the running.
I do. I'd love to do it, but I cannot.
And that's understandable. All right, with that, I guess I'm volunteering myself to take it, and I will, try and write something up, and I guess send it out for all of you guys for approval.
David, I don't
Yep.
mind. I can help you with it.
I appreciate that. I'll
and then
look
I'll
to you for.
Yeah, and then I think we received one in the last mailing from MASC.
MASC, yeah, it was like a packet that came.
Yeah, so I'll
Probably
find it
weeks ago.
and I'll fill it in and then I'll forward it to you. Is there a deadline?
I think we're well in range of the deadline. So I
Okay,
think
can,
it's like
can
a
we
month
give-
or two out.
It's June 1st.
June 1st. Let's give ourselves a deadline now, David.
It's-
So what's the month?
I'm stuck at home, so
Yeah.
you know,
So
week or
let's-
two is.
We
Let's
have a-
just say by May 15th, we should have it completed. All right.
Yeah.
And I can help you with that.
We have a meeting on May 20th that we could approve it at.
Perfect. Okay. So David, you and I by May 15th, and then we can have it ready for the 20th.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, where am I flipping back and forth? The 2019-2020 school calendar, April break and last day of school. This doesn't seem important. We should just skip it. No, we've obviously gotten a lot of emails or a chunk of an email sent to us multiple times regarding, I guess it will sort of attack this one by one and talk about spring break first. Julie, I don't know if you sort of want to take the lead on this, because I know in the past week, you know, I've spoken, this has sort of jumped back and forth and turned into a different conversation almost daily.
Sure. So as you all may recall, last meeting on April 1st, based on the recommendation of the leadership team and at the time recommendation of the Hamilton Wenham Ed Association president, you approved for us to retain April break as it was scheduled. Since then, various communities in our area have decided to survey families, students, and staff to get additional input on what are people's capacity in terms of working through the break and possibly ending the school year earlier, or the need for actually taking a break. And so we disseminated those surveys on Friday, April 10th. Within the first several minutes, there were hundreds of responses between the staff form and the student and families form. Our intent with the student and families form was really for families to talk to their students so we could deeply understand how they're coping with all of this. And so in total, we have had 765 responses from students and families. And the results of that, I don't know if I can share my screen here. I'll try. Oh, the host has to allow me to share my screen.
Brent's working on that right now for you. I can see he's doing that for you.
Okay. So I'll wait for that.
You should have it any moment.
Okay. Keep clicking. Okay, well, the results of that showed that 83.9% of the respondents were in favor of continuing remote learning through the April break. Again, just as a reminder, Monday's Patriots Day, so we don't have school on that day regardless. It's a state holiday. And 16.1% of families said that they wanted to maintain the April break schedule. So I'll just make that bigger so you can see it there. And then what we chose to do was add an opportunity for families and students to provide us comments or questions and additional thoughts. And over the last couple of days, we've been receiving lots of feedback around various aspects of the remote learning model that's in place. So 274 open-ended responses, which we are processing as a leadership team and really unpacking, looking for emerging themes. In terms of staff, the responses were similar with a bit of a stronger favor towards having a break. We had 208 staff members respond to this. We sent it out to the entire faculty. So 78.4% or 163 staff members said that they wanted to continue to work through the break. And 45 staff members or 21.6% said no, they wanted to maintain the break. So as a leadership team, we processed it, and again, we had 46 comments from staff with a variety of important factors being shared. So as a leadership team today, we looked at both of these results. We also looked at some recent information that our guidance department has obtained from some of our high school students. So every Tuesday, they have been sending out an optional, feedback form check-in with students where they're able to talk about how they're coping and what are some things they're doing in terms of self-care, but also able to share how they're feeling. Are they overwhelmed? How are they coping? How are they managing it? And I have to say, our meeting this morning started at 8 a.m. and it really just set the tone for me for the whole day to see and hear directly how some students are managing in this, while also then having sort of some parent feedback and some real pushes for us to be kind of stepping it up, if you will, in terms of our remote learning plan. And I think it's so important. Our initial recommendation as a leadership team was to take the break and allow ourselves time to sort of process all that has happened, because it has really been a very intense 3 weeks for us as a district to take all that we do in person and transfer that to a remote learning platform. And it hasn't been perfect, but we are really proud of the progress that we're making in the work that we're doing. However, we also understand that, when you ask for input, it's important that you respond, and that the consensus of what people are requesting here is saying, let's work through the break and end the school year earlier. I have also been looking at the commissioner's guidance on the 185-day requirement, 180-day requirement. So in this communication, I shared with folks that our last day would be Friday, June 19th, because we only used 4 closure days prior to the March 15th. So the 185th day applies to those who have exceeded the 185th day requirement prior to the March 15th. So regardless, our last day of school would be Friday, June 19th. If we were to use all 4 days, obviously you would just back that up. We would end on a Monday. But in reviewing all of this and looking at our student feedback, and also knowing that this past week we've had 5 students that were hospitalized for mental health issues across the district, the leadership team recommendation is to propose a hybrid option to the school committee for your consideration. And so we would like to obviously honor the Patriots Day on Monday, April 20th, continue remote learning for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then take a vacation break day on Friday the 24th. So that would allow for 2 consecutive 3-day weekends for the students and families and staff who want to work through the break, but then also honoring an opportunity for folks to unplug and step back for those who are needing it. So just to summarize, the leadership team's recommendation is to have no school on the 20th, remote learning the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then no school on the 24th.
So I like this idea for one main reason. Obviously, and it's something that we all said as a committee at our last meeting, that right now we'll keep it as it is, but we were really curious to see what the staff, the teachers thought. Mm-hmm. I think the most resilient people in this situation are the students, right? So while we definitely want to hear what's going on with them, I think it's important to hear what the teachers think. And I like this idea because, as I've said to you here on this forum, and then just when we speak, I think it's important looking forward that the other message we're hearing from everybody is sort of, are we doing enough in regards to, what distance learning looks like? And if there's any way we're going to be able to ramp that up, we can't sort of do it while we're already running, right? It's like you sort of need a few days to take a break and actually rethink how we can do this better. There's, out of all of our staff members, there's probably only a handful that have actually ever sort of trained in any sort of remote distance learning for creating online content, right? So it is a different animal, and the feedback that I've seen, in about a half dozen emails, is that people are saying they'd like to see some more some more rigorous work coming our way, and that takes a little bit of planning, right? And so I think this is a really good solution, and sort of the best of both worlds, keeping things rolling as they are, but also giving a little bit of time to really rethink the rigor and the direction that the staff and teachers are going in.
Can we get a motion before we do discussion?
Sure.
Before this motion, are we going to have a discussion after the motion? Because I have questions. I didn't realize that they had school on Fridays, and there was teaching going on. I was just curious what that was.
So can we have a motion and then we can have discussion? 'Cause I think-
I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee address the April vacation, whether to keep it as is or cancel.
Second,
That's not, we might want to amend that. Well,
No.
let's discuss and then we can talk about amending it. But go ahead, Michelle, Stacy, I know you both had something that you wanted to say.
So
Stacey.
I was just curious about, I know the high school only has school Monday through Thursday. So I was just curious how that Friday comes into play and how we're holding the teachers accountable for any kind of teaching, because I know that not all the teachers are holding Zooms and they're not teaching the whole week. They just throw maybe 3 problems online for 1 week. And I know that on an average, some of the students, I got a lot of emails personally, people telling me personally that I saw in my neighborhood that social distancing, but people seeing when I was walking my dog, asking me, what kind of learning is being done in the school. They didn't feel there was enough learning going on.
So I feel like that's a separate conversation, and maybe it fits under the remote learning plan update, so I can give you a full understanding of what is happening.
Okay.
We are
Sure.
working 5 days a week, so that's not accurate to say that there's no teaching happening on Fridays. For the
Just
high
not in the
school,
high school, right? Then,
No,
because they don't
Every
have
day.
classes on Friday.
yeah, so I think part of what we'll talk about during the remote learning update, what is remote learning and what is virtual school and what is online learning, because those are really distinctly different things. But in this agenda item, what we're trying to address is the April break and the last day of school. So
I guess I was just trying to define the Fridays because I wasn't aware, maybe in the other schools, that there was teachers maybe teaching on Fridays, but I know it's not happening for classes in the high school. So that's what I needed in order to verify as part of the April break discussion.
So our student rep, Thomas Kane, is weighing in and clarifying that there are office hours on Fridays and teachers are active. And so, again, I think there's a nuance here of what is remote learning versus what is daily instruction, right? We don't have an expectation of daily instruction per se, but they are available to students and meeting with them on Fridays. Sometimes in small groups, sometimes one-on-one. It looks really different depending on what the students need.
Yeah, that's how our teaching is going right now at my school too. It's like classes or more work, sort of traditional as you think about it. And then Friday is sort of that catch up or one-on-one stuff. And that's sort of what I've seen going on in my house. I've got 3rd grader, 5th grader, 7th grader in high school junior. So
that was kind of my question, is to me, the Friday is possibly the most important day of the week for learning, because it's the day when you get the opportunity to have a small group, you get an opportunity to have your questions answered. So what was the thought process around taking the Friday versus taking a Monday, Tuesday?
So the recommendation was based on the fact that it would give people 2 short, like 2 long weekends to sort of just unplug and decompress. We do have people on our leadership team who remember an extended school closure that happened in the past. I can't remember exactly what happened, but one of the issues that occurred was a lot of burnout. I don't know if any of you remember the exact details of that conversation, but
There
one
was
of the
snow. There was snow on the roofs, and it was
yeah, 10 days. Yep. Thank you. I've been on Zoom calls since 8 a.m., so I feel like my brain is fried. But yes, so then we worked through, I believe it was February break. So we had lots of conversation about that. And, you know, as leaders, our job is to lead people, and it's also to understand what the capacity is of the people that we're leading. And although 78% feel ready to work through, I think we can't ignore the fact that we have 45, 46 teachers who need a break. Particularly if you think about the way that this remote learning transition has occurred. The first week was really intensive to get communication out by Monday the 16th. We had folks working all through the weekend, our curriculum leaders helping us get those resources together. And before we even sent that out, we started working on our remote learning webpage because we knew that wasn't going to be efficient, or that wasn't going to be enough for families, and that it was going to be overwhelming in the way that we were sending it out. But that our intent was just to get resources in the hands of people so they could get started if they were ready. The other thing that we have to, so then the second week was really that, right? The leadership team getting the structure of the web page ready, and then getting teachers working together in collaborative teams. Because the other thing we have to keep in mind here is that people are going to get sick. If you don't know someone yet who has COVID-19, the likelihood as we hit the peak in the next few days is that you're going to start to know people. I know for me that's already happening. And so we also have to have a teaming structure that allows for staff to be able to step back if they need to take care of themselves or their families, while also keeping things going so that the majority of families and students have the structure that we need in order to support everybody. We have some families who are not able to engage at all with this remote learning plan, and we have to understand that, right? We have to just channel our deepest levels of empathy and compassion in this situation. So week 2 was really intense for the general educators, getting all that classroom kind of structure and team structure up and running. And then we found out from DESE, the Department of Education, around, I want to say maybe my days are blending together, April 1st, that we now had to develop individualized remote learning plans for every single student in the district who has an individualized education plan. So in Hamilton Wenham, that's about 22% of our population. And so then our special educators were really engaged and really working with families, because they couldn't just write those plans individually, right? They had to connect with families in the same way we do around IEPs to make sure that we are meeting the needs of students who have individualized and specialized learning expectations or needs. And so it's been a lot. It's been a lot for us to take what we do in person while also managing, you know, a variety of expectations. Every family is different. Every learner is different. And this is not new for us because we differentiate what we do on a daily basis. What's hard is doing it in this remote way. You know, there's some families who have to work from home, or who are fortunate enough to still have jobs and be working from home, that are trying to navigate multiple learners. And we need to be respectful of that. So our intent is not to hold school. That's not the expectation from the Commissioner of Education. It's not what's right and best for families and kids right now. Our intent is to provide structure and support, maintain connections with our kids, because we know that's the very most important thing that we can be doing during this time, while also making sure that people who need meals are getting meals, people who need devices are getting devices, and that students who are extremely vulnerable are getting the social emotional supports that they need. Our counselors are connecting daily with students, with families. When kids provide us with information that lets us know that they may not be safe for a variety of reasons, we're taking actions to address those needs. So, you know, I think that we have to all put this in context and remember, this is not an education crisis. This is a public health crisis, and we need to be really prepared to respond for what might be coming.
So I think that's a really good point, Julie, and I'm glad you brought that up. Because I mean, the other thing we have to realize also is we're not alone in this, right? We're not, every school district in the United States is dealing with this, right? So all the concerns of what junior year looks like for people, all juniors throughout the country are going through the exact same thing, right? And it is really foremost that we have to make sure that we want everyone to stay healthy during all of this. Obviously, it's our job as educators to educate our children, and we're going to do that. We have the best team. You know, I love teachers. I love our administration, and we're going to do the best we can. It's a moving, you know, we're building the plane, you know, as we're flying. I think Ben was so on the money when he said that, and you know, we're not going to always, you know, just like in any classroom, you're not going to succeed in every class you ever do, you know, and you just sort of revamp what worked, what didn't, and keep going. Excuse me. You know, that being said, I just think that this is the right plan, and you know, you're never going to please 100% of the people, but right now I've been, you know, I have to say I'm really proud of the district, you know, from top to bottom in the communication, the planning, and then just the reevaluating on a daily basis on what we're doing and what we can do, you know, what hasn't worked and what can do better, you know. So you know, and I think that our priorities are straight, and you know, we're still continuing to improve them. So I really appreciate all the work all of you guys are doing on this.
Julie, quick question. Was the leadership team, I know you had the survey from the teachers, but was the leadership team able to touch base today with some of the staff and see and float this idea proposal by them?
You're on mute, Julie.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure who had staff meetings today or not. Vinny and I have been on Zoom calls all day with folks, so I don't know that we were able to vet the hybrid approach in a thorough way.
Okay, thank you.
I just find, well, just to say, I'm not in favor of taking the Monday and the Friday. I feel like we should either chunk the days because that's a true break, or we should only take the Monday. I feel like the Friday is very important for the kids to have the opportunity to have those office hours. And I just know for myself personally, I am way more refreshed from a 4-day break than I am from a 3-day break. So having 2 3-day breaks would not be any better for me, would actually not be as good as a 4-day break. And I also think it flows better with at least the schedule that's set up at the high school with the day 1, day 2, day 1, day 2. If you do the Friday and the Monday, you're going to have 2 day 2s, a day 1, and no opportunity to meet one-on-one with your teacher. So
you could just move Friday to Thursday, like have a day 1, a day 2, and then have Thursday be your check-in day.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you to make the decision based. I wouldn't want you to make the decision based on that. Obviously, if we have a different schedule next week, we're going to have to adjust. And I hear loud and clear that check-in day is really important, and we could make sure that we preserve that opportunity.
I just feel like a 4-day break is more beneficial than 2 3 days. That's what
you know, the one thing that scares about me, I understand what you're saying, Michelle, in a normal situation, but I think you know, sort of the feedback that we seem to be hearing is that, you know, parents especially, you know, like having that just some sort of routine, right? So the 4 days of not having anything, you're not hearing that voice, whereas having the 2 3-day weekends are sort of touching, you know, and that's where I think that would be successful. Normally I'd be right with you with I'd rather have the 4 days all together, but I think that we're sort of in trying to make as many people happy as possible. That's why I think that the 2 3 days would work in this current situation. You know, normally I'm 100% with you. I'd rather have the 4 days.
Michelle, I'm just curious, what is Gloucester doing? Your district?
they're voting tonight in about an hour or about half hour.
So Salem Academies, we're having our whole break next week.
It's anticipated that they'll cancel the whole break, but I know Manchester just did the Monday, Tuesday, and they're going to hold school on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Most of the ones I've been seeing on the MASC are either full cancel or full go.
In Beverly, it's full go. Almost 90% of the respondents in the same type of survey said continue with the learning.
I mean, I think I understand that psychology, like we just getting started and we want to keep going, but I do think that Julie's got a very good point that it's a long haul.
Way less than what they do. So I'm just saying,
Oh.
and they have all learned how to acclimate as well. And I just think sometimes we need to hold a little bit accountable because not all the kids are even attending the classes as well, too.
My middle schooler's going all day long. She's got about 4 or 5 hours a day, pretty consistently. And her friends are actually all saying that they're worried about having too much work.
Yeah, and that's what the students who responded to the survey this Tuesday were saying. Some of them are fine and they're managing just fine, and that's going to be the case. Some are not, and again, in this setting, that's why we're trying to create choice so that families can do more if they'd like to. If you want to maintain 5 days of structure next week, my daughter didn't have school on April 10th or the 13th. Her school was closed. But we had lots of activities to do because we weren't able to do them all in every single day. So we still kept the whatever, structure that we're able to provide for her to the best of our abilities. And some days look good and some days don't look so good. But I think families still have access to the webpage and will still be able to go back to, some of those choice activities and continue to have the structure if that feels right and best for their families.
Georgetown did
One of the
vote
things
to
that I
have the
know-
whole week, by the way. They voted to work through the whole week next week.
One of the things that I've realized from talking with people I know here, and my son is in first grade, is that the first grades are doing things drastically different at different schools. And I feel like my son could have much more structure and maybe somewhat FaceTime with the people from school because he really misses them. And I wonder if teachers are having a hard time with the online learning. Is there someone there helping them?
Yes, we launched a whole professional development webpage for our teachers. We have a professional development committee that is working. The media specialists at each school have been coordinating live Zoom trainings. We've had over 20 to date that we've offered to staff that they can join in on. But again, just like each student is different and each family is different, each staff member is different. And we have to remember, we are in the middle of a global traumatic event and everybody is processing this differently. And so it's not like being in school when a principal can walk through the halls and see who's there and who's not and who's on and who isn't and who needs support and who needs a break. So that's an added layer to our leadership challenges during this time is really, being able to make sure that everyone can be where they need to be and processing what's happening right now. And so to anyone who's having a specific concern or feels like your child is getting too much or not enough, your first place to go is talk to your teacher about that. Maybe explain what it is that isn't happening for your child that you need to have happening. But again, we have to remember too, that they are also trying to do all the same things you are as a family with their own families at the exact same time.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. 'Cause what I've told, I've told my daughter, which is like, I don't think these teachers are coordinating, realizing how much work I'm getting from everyone else. I'm like, talk to your teachers, talk to your teachers, talk to your teachers. And, everyone else I've talked to, parents are just, hey, talk to the parents. Talk to the teachers. If you guys want to have this FaceTime, whatever, work with them because they do too. They miss your kids as much as your kids miss them. And But like I said, I think this is sort of where that importance of having a few days to have everyone regroup, sort of take that feedback from parents. Maybe we sort of encourage our teachers who haven't done so yet to send out a quick, Google survey of their classes and see what they're sort of looking for, individually. And again, unfortunately at this point, it's really hard coordinating to make sure all our first grades look alike, and what that entails. And I mean, but we also know that the classrooms in each school are also drastically different, just depending on the school, depending on the needs of the kids within those classrooms. So that that's hard, I think, for everybody to understand. That's one thing that's sort of happening in our community that maybe people haven't realized before, right? It's like where your child necessarily fits in that individual classroom is how they're gauging, what they're getting. My son Dante is flying through his work right now, where I know a couple of kids in his class aren't going through as quickly, and they're like, oh wow, he's doing this. And it's just sort of how they're taking in their information, and it's on an individualized basis. And this is the stuff that our teachers see every single day that now the parents see from a school perspective. And there are those kids that no matter how much work and how challenging the work is, they fly right through it. And and as teachers, I know I'm seeing everyone sort of head kind of nodding that it's hard keeping up with them, and at the same time keeping the class moving forward, with a couple of kids that might be struggling on any particular thing. And this is happening, still happening now in a new environment. And you don't necessarily have the resources of that in the classroom stuff, but there's no way the teachers or anyone can help you if we don't communicate sort of your needs clearly to them, or your wishes. Again, we're not unique in going through this. Everybody's going through the same thing, and we can only do the best to our ability, and until we get some help or some direction sort of pointing us in a different way.
So Julie, is there anything from preventing you from just having 4-day weeks from now on?
I think I would want that to come from the school committee if that was a decision that the school committee wanted to make. Contractually, our teachers work 5 days a week, and then some, as you know. Right now, our requirement is we'd have to be going to the 185th day, which then would bring us back to Monday, June 22nd. But one of the things that we heard in our call with the commissioner this week was that the governor is going to be making an announcement in terms of what it's going to look like beyond May 4th. We still don't know yet. Are we scheduling a return to school at some point? Are we out for the rest of the year? Many other states have already made the decision to not come back this year. And even with the idea of if we come back, that's a whole nother kind of process. What is that going to look like? Who's going to so I won't get into that right now, but we've been asked to not go rogue and make local decisions about school closures, or I think that would kind of fall into the school closure bucket in my mind, but that we can anticipate some sort of update or announcement at the end or beginning of end of this week or beginning of next week.
My preference would be to not have 2 3-day weekends in a row. My preference would be to either have a 4-day weekend or to have a 3-day weekend now, have a 3-day weekend like around the 12th of March, and then a 3-day weekend for Memorial Day, and then be out. So.
12th of May. Luckily, we are through March.
Oh yeah, May.
I actually looked at my calendar, got nervous. I have no idea what day it is. No, it's funny that you said that they asked not to go rogue, because I've definitely, expressed my thoughts that we should be, doing our teachers a favor and making a decision to, that we're gonna not be back in the classroom, so we can actually be planning accordingly for everybody. But I won't bring that up at this point. But I mean, so
ESC changed the rules. we voted under one set of rules, and then they came back and they said, oh, but wait, then you can move back the date. And that was not information we had when we voted.
So this is an evolving situation, and I know that when the next decision is made, there will be new guidance, and what we do will look different, right?
So,
And the other thing I would sorry, David, just to add, for those who feel like we're not doing enough, or we have been lock in step with the DESE guidance from day one. And in fact, I think a lot of districts didn't launch their remote learning plans until April 6th or after, where we launched ours the week before. So in a lot of ways, we're a week ahead of some communities. I've also seen the emails from folks who are saying, well, this district's doing that and this district's doing that, and we're falling behind. That's just not accurate. I mean, I talk to superintendents every single day. And when I hear those things, I ask them, what are you actually doing? Now, the good news is if you like someone else's webpage, or you think they're presenting activities in a way that's better than what we're doing, you can use that too, because we're all working towards the same standards and the same expectations across the Commonwealth. But we've been right in line with the DESE guidance. And in fact, I think the next phase is going to include maybe some, identified power standards that we may be working to. Our elementary team has already been doing that work. And so when I shared that feedback with them, with our leadership team this morning, they're like, wait a minute, we just spent a whole week working on that. So again, I think we're a bit ahead of the curve in terms of some of the planning and preparation. There's just no expectation for us to replicate a full day of school. That is not going to ever be the recommendation. And today, either today, I don't know if it was released publicly, but MIT did a whole analysis of remote learning across the country, and Massachusetts is rated number 2. So I think the only issue was something around privacy, but we actually have been communicating about that. So just to kind of put it into context.
So Michelle, just sort of touching on what Julie was saying there, I do like the idea of splitting up the breaks and trying to make the lift a little bit easier for everybody. My concern is if we vote on something right now and then they change the rules next week, like, could that? Do you know what I mean? No, it's like if all of a sudden the rules change, like, okay, DESE and the governor come out next week and say, we're not going back to school physically. Everything's going to stay online, and have to, provide online service for the rest. And we had now voted to throw an extra day off in the middle of March, whether or not that would be superseded by whatever comes out.
Well, it just means we'd have to go one more day in the summer.
So, which would bring us to that Monday.
I don't know what.
Yeah, so the commissioner's latest guidance has said the longest any school district has to attend school is to the 185th day, but that it's a local decision if you decide to extend beyond that. And so we just happen to fall within the 185th day because we only had 1 snow day, 2 wind cancellation power outage days, and then the 1 health concern closure on the 13th of March.
So the other thing, I guess, and I'd love to hear someone else weigh in, but Michelle Bailey, this is for you. Just thinking that in taking this new direction that would be guided by the school committee, which of course is our prerogative, do you feel that you're listening, that we'd be addressing the needs that we've heard from, from our senior staff, from our teachers, and from the parents? Do you feel that addresses that need, and that we're not going too rogue?
I feel like we've heard that most people want to work through.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're trying to look at those few people, and trust me, I'm not mitigating who those people are, because if you're telling me you need a break, I completely can have empathy for that. But we're trying to find a way to provide a break for extra people. And I just don't think stacking 2 3-day weekends is going to do it. That is a 3-day weekend is not a break. It's just not. It's just an extra day to do chores. So
I like what Michelle said earlier about throwing a Monday in later on in the year, because it is a long time from, April 21st through June, let's say 15th. So could we propose, the holiday on Patriots Day, keep that, and then a May 4th? And then that's another 2 weeks they have off on Memorial Day. Is that?
We could definitely make an amendment to the motion. Gene, it looked like you took.
We call it like a Star Wars holiday or the morning of not reopening school.
Yes.
Or if we are going to open school on the Monday, it'll be like a regroup day.
Right.
But doesn't that sort of counter your argument of having another 3-day weekend? Because it's the same thing, right?
Stacking them together doesn't give you a true break. It would be better to have 2 3-day weekends spread out versus having 2 in a row, because that's not, I just don't, I feel like we should either have a 4-day weekend or we should have a 3-day weekend, but not 2 stacked together. I don't see the value of a 3-day school day week.
So I'll just add one more piece of thought and then leave it to you all to make the decision. I think that there's a value in having the time off, whether it's 2 consecutive days or bookended on the week now, because you already decided April 1st that we were keeping the break. And, so some people have that in their minds. And this is, I think the timing of this matters in terms of the break. So I would advocate for you to either make it for this week or not. I think throwing it in like May 4th, I understand the theory behind that, but I don't know that it would have the same value.
I think we really need to keep the momentum, and we can take the Monday off for Patriots Day, and then they'll get a Memorial Weekend off. We're not doing any long school days, so I think that's adequate. We just need to keep up with the momentum.
So
So I also think we should keep the momentum going. I'm working full time and doing schoolwork from home full time, and it's taken a while to get into a flow that's worked. And I feel like my wife and I feel like we finally figured it out in some ways and gotten my son into a pattern during the day. So he kind of has a sense of what's going to happen when. And that's if that gets undone, I think it's a little bit hard to redo. Obviously it can happen and no one's going to die, but it's hard.
But Ty, let me ask you a question though, because how does having the break or not having the break prevent you from continuing doing the work, right?
It doesn't, but I think though that we're talking about kind of keeping going with the process, and I can keep doing that. Obviously we can do work every day from here forward through the summer, right? Yeah. But I don't know that that's necessarily the point.
Well, I go back to the statistics of the survey. We had 307 full-time staff, 208 responded. That's 2/3. That response rate is sky high. You don't get that kind of response rate, right? And we have how many students? 1,600 students in the district. Probably off.
1,800.
1,800.
Okay. 700 some responded, right? In more than a good number, 80%, more than 80% of both populations said that they wanted to continue.
Yes, they did. Yes, yeah. They did.
Not more than 78% of your staff want to continue, more than 80% of parents.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm in the same boat you are, Ty. I'm working full time.
Yeah, but no, Gene, I'm saying that I also want to continue.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. You want to continue.
Okay.
This is my feeling. I feel like I want to continue as well, but also recognizing the fact that, every kid's different. Every teacher is different. I mean, you learn this when you do parenting, right? Every kid responds differently. I don't want to ignore those kids and those teachers who do need a mental break. I mean, I certainly could use one. And our company said, you're keeping Patriots Day as a holiday, don't schedule meetings, and we're going to basically force you to take a break. And so I appreciate that, because otherwise I probably would have still been working. I think the 20th, I think sort of keeping the 20th as a break is obvious because it already is a state holiday. It's just whether or not we add on another
The
day
24th.
week.
Yeah, the 20th isn't actually a choice.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sort of torn.
I'm in, I guess I'm in keeping the momentum and taking Dr. Kuchenberger's and keeping in mind Michelle's idea of chunking, but I believe taking Dr. Kuchenberger's suggestion of taking that extra day off, 3-day weekends, taking the 24th off is a great compromise, because the parents who want to continue with the routine can continue with the routine. The teachers who want that break can have that break, have 2-3-day weekends. That's what
Why
I'm.
don't we,
Dr.
I think we should follow what the survey said. The teachers, the kids' parents, they're saying they want to continue and keep the momentum.
Yeah, so this would
Not,
keep the momentum except for one day.
Right. I mean, we have to look at the fact that it is a recommendation from our leadership team. Right. They did, went through the surveys, went through everything. Michelle, you're on.
Michelle, you muted.
The recommendation before this was that we take the whole week off. So the leadership team was out of step with what the rest of the community wanted.
Right, but they've now since gone through the survey,
Right. But
Well, part of our initial recommendation was to conserve those days for June, when we could hopefully be back in class together in person. And, as whether or not that will happen, we just don't know. But we do think that the time together in person is of high value.
right.
One thing that people are commenting about, and I've gotten some text, people said the survey did not give the choice of a 3-day week and 2 long weekends. It said to work through April break or not. And they vote, like 78 to 80% that they want it to keep going, keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I don't understand why we're throwing in the Friday.
Well,
Okay.
Stacy, that person followed up with an additional comment.
Yeah. So, I have a huge problem with taking the Friday because I think the Friday is important. So if I vote for that, I want to hear that the high school and all of the schools are going to change their schedule so that we get that individual support day on Thursday instead of on Friday. So, because to me, that is the most important day of the week for most of our most vulnerable students.
I agree with that, Michelle.
So to just cut that day office hours out, I think is not in the best interest of the district.
No, I think David said it earlier, just move the Friday to the Thursday,
Right.
Friday office hours to Thursday.
Well, we don't have the authority to do that. So I would want a commitment.
I will clearly communicate that to the leadership team. If they're not watching now, I'm sure they hear it loud and clear if they are.
Where in our motion did we say that we're? I'm trying to think what the motion actually said and what we'd be voting on at this point.
The motion actually said to decide whether or not to have April break. So I think you need an amendment to the motion.
That's right.
So are we? I guess I'm looking for an amendment to the motion to accept the recommendation by the leadership team to have school on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of April break.
Okay, so I make
Good
a
to see.
motion to amend the motion to accept the leadership team to have school on Tuesday, April 21st, Wednesday, April 22nd, and Thursday, April 23rd.
So what
Yep,
is
yep.
the day of school with that? Because I think we also will need to vote the last day of school at the same time.
If you
I
approve
think they're
that,
two
then-
different things.
yeah,
So before I vote, I'd like to know what the
All right.
last day of the school will be.
if this motion were to be approved, the last day of school would be Tuesday, June 16th, 2020.
It'll be Thursday, June
Tu-
16th?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. Or, I'm
And if-
sorry, wait a minute.
Take the
Or
Friday.
actually, it'll be Thursday, June 18th, 2020. We're only taking one day. I did that backwards.
Okay.
You're right, Michelle. Thursday, June 18th, 2020.
And what's our last date anyway? It was supposed to be June 19th.
Yes.
So it was continuing right to the normal end of the school year. We're just taking an extra 3-day weekend. Now, keeping the momentum, giving those who need a break.
Our 180th day was Monday, June 15th, and then our 185th day was Monday, June 22nd, I believe.
Oh, so it's not, so yeah, it's just a day difference.
So would we then end on the 19th?
No, actually, Michelle, now you're confusing me. Our last day would have been June 19th, but now we are continuing 3 additional days. So it was Tuesday, June 16th is the last day of school, sorry. Because we are gaining 3 instructional days
So
during the break.
at our last meeting, we voted the last day of school to be June 22nd.
That was when we thought we had to go to the 185th day. But because we only used 4 days, we don't have to go to the 185th day. We didn't have to exceed the 185th day.
So if we don't take the day, then we would be getting out on Monday, the 15th.
Correct.
Which, if you want to value any of the days in June, you're better off with the Tuesday than the Monday to try and get something there, right? Because that Monday, no one would show up for. Let's be real. We good for a vote?
Can someone repeat the motion, please?
Motion was to accept the leadership's team recommendation to have school on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That was the amendment. Of the
Next week.
motion.
Okay.
All right, so I guess we'll just put this to a vote. Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey. Yes. All right, Stacy,
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Ty, we're on mute,
Yes.
and David's a yes. So now do I need to vote on the original motion? All right, so now just voting on the original motion that we're changing the changing April vacation. Peter,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Ty Primo,
Yes.
and David is a yes. So at this point, now we need to vote on the new last day of school, which, oops, I just shut that off and I didn't mean to. What did I do? which we are now looking at
June 16th.
June 16th. There we go. Sorry, I just minimized the screen somehow.
Do I need to make a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts the last day of school 2019-2020 school year as Tuesday, June 16th, 2020.
A second.
Second.
Thanks, Gene. Peter,
June 16th, right? Tuesday, June 16th. Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Michelle Bailey, yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Gene Lee,
Yes.
Hi Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes. All right. So the next thing up is to vote to approve the superintendent's contract, which we do have the first signed contract. I don't have that second one that sort of took forever to get all of us to sign. But it is the same, excuse me. And I was in the middle of sending out an email earlier just to have Mary Beth look at that and just sign that copy that's got everybody's signature on it. But
Can I ask David, how long is the contract? Since I don't have it in front of me.
the 3-year.
3-year. So it would be 2020 through 2023?
Correct.
But it would have to be renewed by December 1st, 2022.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts the contract of Mary Beth Banos as the superintendent of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District, running from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023.
Michelle Bailey, second.
Peter Walczyk?
This is the one I already signed, right?
Correct.
Okay, then yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Michelle Bailey, yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Dean Lee,
Yes.
Hi Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes. I am not sure if one of those numbers on the side is
It is.
Mary Beth.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if she actually wanted to hop on and just say hi to everybody, or
I can. I think I can give her the ability if you just give me 1 second.
And he has to do that.
yep.
So while Vinny does that, there's a lot of articles around the country saying it's very difficult to see large gatherings before 2021. So we may be thinking about remote learning until there's widespread testing in place. This may go on for a long time.
Well, I know BU is already looking at pushing off until January for going back to school. Mary Beth.
Hi, good evening.
That's just up the Brady Bunch view. That's
Right.
How's everybody holding up? These are challenging times for sure.
We're doing well, thank you. You actually have a large gathering of people here. We've got about 46 on, and 37 that aren't school committee or administration members. So I'll give you the floor for a minute.
All right.
So, we just got your contract approved, officially approved, and we're excited for you to start and happy that you're joining us. And, just to sort of let everybody know that Mary Beth has decided to try and join as many of our school committee meetings as possible while she's still finishing her work up in Vermont. And we're thankful for that. So that way she can, really do her best to hit the ground running. And, that's really, really appreciative. I don't know if you want to say a few words, just sort of to everybody, Mary Beth.
Yeah, just very briefly, I am thrilled to be joining the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District. I am empathetic with the struggles that you are facing right now. We are facing the same ones up in Vermont. These are unprecedented times and difficult decisions around every corner. And I know everybody's doing the best they can to try to problem solve through it. What I do want to do is recognize both Vinny and Julie. I've reached out to them in the midst of trying to manage all of this. They've been very gracious and welcoming, and we will find some time together, I'm sure, in the next week or two to start to put together a transition plan. And so I really thank them for their outreach, particularly given this challenging time. And I look forward to working with all of you and picking up with what I'm sure will be an interesting spot as we close out this school year and start the next one.
Great, thank you. I have one question that I think is on a lot of people's mind. First, is it Mary or Mary Beth?
It's Mary Beth.
And then how do you pronounce your last name properly?
Banyos.
Banyos, okay. Now we know moving forward.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a little bit.
Well, thank you for joining us and, hopping on to say a few words. So I'll let you go back to sort of just being a non-active participant.
Sit back and relax for this one.
Right. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mary Beth.
Excuse me. All right, up next is Julie back, is discussing the middle and high school Spain trip. Excuse me.
Sure, I'll give a little intro. Linked into the agenda. Well, first, welcome, Mary Beth. I do look forward to connecting with you soon and happy to start that transition planning as you're ready. Second, this agenda item here, as you know, families have been struggling to understand what their options are in terms of some of the trips that have been canceled due to the COVID-19 crisis that we're all navigating. So one of the trips that was canceled was the middle school trip to Spain, which was scheduled for April 2020. You'll notice here it's listed as a new agenda item that we're going to ask for you to approve a middle high school trip to Spain for February 2021. So right now for families, students who were scheduled to go in April, families have two choices. They can either accept a voucher from the company and put it towards a future trip, like this one that we're proposing here, or they can sort of cash out, if you will, and receive a small portion of their investment back in way of a refund, which is the max they're able to be refunded right now per the travel company's policies is $450. So they're losing out on about $1,400 of previously paid monies if they had already paid that. And my understanding in working with Kevin Sano, who is our staff member who coordinates these trips, and the middle school principal, now looping in the high school principal, is that this trip is so affordable for families because of the way that it's organized and planned, and they would actually be staying. They would actually be staying with host families in Spain. And so there has been some poor communication, I think is fair to say, not necessarily on the part of the school system, but just in the way of some information was released to families before we even heard from the company. And so, of course, that's unfortunate and we're apologetic for that. But our intent here is to plan a trip for February 2021 as outlined in the exhibit so that families who want to apply for the voucher, who want to take the voucher option, know that we have another trip planned. Of course, it'll be tentative, as it always is, depending upon safety to travel and various other things that are often outside of our control. So depending on how many payments families made, they could be losing out on more than $1,400. We basically are, so for us on our end, as soon as we learned from the governor that international trips were no longer allowed for for preschool through K through 12 students, in addition to the college students. I think back on March 11th, Kevin sent a letter to families explaining what had happened and where we were. And then they've also received a communication on April 6th directly from the company. So that's sort of what happened with the planned trip. Our hope is to get a trip planned so those who want to seek the voucher option so they can recoup as much of the funds that they've invested as possible, that they would have that option. And so the recommendation is to approve a now middle school, high school trip to Spain for 2021. The other thing is that if families are choosing the voucher, they can transfer the voucher to another sibling and or choose to, barter with other families and share the voucher in other ways. That's not something that the school would necessarily facilitate, but that is an option as well. They are transferable.
Are we comfortable? Has this always been a middle school, high school trip? Or
It
were you
was a
opening it
middle
to high
school trip, but because it'll be next year, those 8th grade students who were planning to go will now be freshmen. So that's what's making it a middle school, high school trip.
Okay. And are we comfortable with the idea of safely traveling to other people's homes in February 2021? Nothing. All right.
How many people usually take this trip? Do you know? Do we know?
I believe there was like around 12 to 15 scheduled, maybe less than 20.
So the previous trip was more of like a mutual exchange where some kids were here in August, and then our kids were supposed to go stay with those kids in April. So how is that, or is that still one-to-one match happening?
My understanding is that it wasn't a one-to-one match. Some families could choose to host and they would receive discounted pricing. I don't believe that every student who was going hosted a family. In fact, I think most of them, they stayed in hotels actually when they were here this fall.
Just someone saying that the trip was 20 students and was actually close to $3,000. Just want to say that we do see you, and thanks for the information, Anastasia.
And my next question was about the company itself. So is Carousel like a company that we have confidence is going to weather this sort of downturn? Like, are these vouchers going to actually be worth something? I don't know this company, so I don't know.
So it's a company that we have worked with a number of times. Our teacher leader, Kevin Sano, knows them very well and has been in a lot of communication with them. One of the things we would recommend to families choosing the voucher is that they do purchase the trip insurance, which is always an option, but my understanding is not very few people actually purchase that as an added protection. And the cost varies depending on the cost of the trip. The voucher I'm sorry.
Is your question whether or not the company is going to even exist in February?
Michelle's is, I
That's what
think.
I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
Is it going to even exist?
Right.
I have no insider information on that.
I think that the tough thing about that is, right, that's obviously something to consider, as should be, would pushing the trip to the February 21 even be possible. But I don't think there's any other sort of recourse where you could make up the money, as far as I'm understanding it. If we push the trip to 2021, I would have to think that voucher, I'd be curious what we can do to sort of say legally binding, all right, we're going to use this voucher for a 2021 trip, then have the option to have insurance, to pay insurance for the trip. Then should the company go under, or the trip need to be canceled at that point, they could recoup the money at that point. What I'm trying to do is figure out a way that they could get their money back, right? Because obviously this is a tiny company and they don't even have the money in hand to to give the money back. That's sort of the reality of the situation. So is there a way you could sort of manipulate the system so that 6 months from now, if this falls through, if the company goes under, well, the company would go under in like 3 months, but that you can then collect insurance. Like I think we need to approve this is what I'm saying, so that we can plan a trip, get one on the books, have the vouchers go towards that trip, and then be able to like sort of buy insurance for the trip at that point, so you can make the money up then. I don't think there's any other way that I can see of right now in front of us that these parents could make up the money any other way.
May I ask a question? I had this question and I also saw it in the chat. The parents didn't cancel the trip. The pandemic did. So why does it fall on them to have to, fight to get their money back or get a voucher? And how has the company spent this money? You just said the company doesn't have it. What did they do with it?
No, they spent several months planning the trip, coordinating the host families. And again, I understand that this is a contentious issue. I'm just communicating what I understand to be the facts. And so my understanding is that there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for the trip. And those things are in place months before the trip is actually going to happen. And that work occurred.
I see.
So as a district, we aren't directly involved in terms of the financing of the trip. It's completely voluntary and parent funded. We have no way to guarantee that it'll be safe in February 2021 for them to travel. One parent noted in the comments that insurance is invalid in a pandemic. It doesn't cover for those types of things. But if there was some other reason where they were saying it's safe to travel, but a parent felt like they didn't want their child to travel, that would give them some more options.
Yeah, but there has to be a force majeure clause in the insurance, right? Basically, act of God kind of thing. Like I have to imagine, like this is how a lot of other companies are taking.
Yeah, an unforeseen circumstance.
So, but that's for the existing, right? So for the people that's existing. So what I'm saying is, for those who didn't purchase the insurance, which I mean, we've all had options to take trips before and buy insurance, and you rarely ever do it. I've never, but now if we actually if we approve this for January and create a new trip, at least create the option, right? We're not creating the trip, right? So it really has nothing to do with us. All we're doing is giving permission to schedule a new one. At that point, I think it would be, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other thing I was trying to say earlier is that the voucher is also valid until 2022. So again, I can't give any sense of assurance about whether or not the company will exist then, but I do know that if there wasn't the possibility of travel in 2021, the voucher is good until 2022. It could also be used if there were trips that were safe, if it was safe to travel this summer and we wanted to do a school-sponsored trip in the summer, or a school, not sponsored, but facilitated. My understanding is that Kevin Sano has done things like that in the past too. I just don't think that line's realistic.
What about the loans for small businesses who are in this predicament? I know that was part of the CARES Act, right? Where they could take out a loan to pay back the people.
But I mean, that's beyond our control, Peter. Like what we have to do is we have to realize what we can do as a school committee to try and help our parents out who are stuck in the situation. And I honestly think the only option we have at the moment is to approve this trip, so there's even an option to use these vouchers, and hopefully, and again, I don't think they're going to be able to travel them, but I think that I can't see another way where they could get any of their money back. It's the only way I could see them recouping anything.
So if we say no, they lose everything. Is that what we're saying? Or?
So, yeah, unless I imagine they probably have a suit on their hands, but I don't know what they're getting out of that.
I think the issue is, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the issue is that if we don't have a school-sponsored trip, then their voucher to go on some other trip is not going to have adults. So then they would have to pay for an adult to go on some other trip with that kid. So they're going to have to spend more money to use their voucher.
I think they can tag on with other schools. I know we have had kids from other schools tag on our trips. I just don't know the logistics of that.
You know, so again, it's sort of what we can control as a school committee. That this whole trip is, you know, beyond our control. We don't sponsor it. We're not taking money in as a district and moving moving out.
It is a school-sponsored trip because we are using our personnel and we are voting on it.
So, well, it's not a school-sponsored trip.
Yes, it is.
So
It's school sponsored because we are having our employees use their time in our school to gather up people. Now, if Kevin was doing the trip and never distributed stuff inside the school and didn't seek our approval, then it would not be school sponsored. That's the whole point. This is a school sponsored trip that we approve.
20, 30. So we're looking at a 30,000 liability to
But
the school. If
we're not.
you're correct.
We don't have a financial liability. The school district doesn't have a financial liability in this.
And every single person who signed up for this trip signed the form that said that they would not hold us liable, and that there was a checkbox that said you can purchase the insurance and this is what the insurance is for, and you understand by not purchasing the insurance that you are taking on the liability. And when we approved that Peru trip, I tried really hard to say, you need to make sure that the people understand they're going to lose their money if there's any like unrest and they can't go on this trip unless they purchase that insurance. I feel badly for these people. I do.
Mhm.
And when my son went to Japan, I bought the insurance because I remember the days when the school committee had to cancel trips. But here, I don't think the insurance would have come into play even if they had purchased it. I don't think it covers this issue. Like
So-
acts of war, catastrophes, pandemics, I don't think it covers that. So even if they buy the insurance now, I'm not sure that they'll be covered for February. I need to be able to see that insurance policy. And I'm not sure that it was in the exhibit. Like I didn't even realize we were approving the exact specific trip tonight. So I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, I mean, that's okay because we could obviously table this unless there's some sort of time crunch, you know, because again, this is sort of one of those things that is changing. I'm trying to read the as they're coming because some of the parents are on the chat as well.
So it looks
So-
like a refund. So depending on how much families have paid so far, the way it's worded is that students would get a cash refund in the amount of all monies paid to Carousel by the customer minus $1,600, which reflects the cost already incurred by Carousel in planning the 2020 reciprocal trip. So depending on how many payments families have made, some paid in full right up front, the amount they're getting back, they're able to recover from the partial refund varies. I think in this situation, my recommendation is to approve the trip and give families two other options, right? Then they can choose to either roll over and enroll in that 2021 trip. They can choose to do the partial refund, or they can choose to have that voucher that's good for 2 years. If you don't approve the trip, then they only have the two options, which is the voucher or the partial refund. So.
Yeah.
Curious, why is,
Julie, we should try to allow parents to have the opportunity to get as much of the money back as they can. That's a lot of money.
Right.
But
So
I think that
the way to do that is to either allow them to have the rollover or the voucher that gives them the most money back, if you will. But if they want cash in hand because they're worried about all the points that we brought up tonight, then the partial refund is their only option at this point. I do know some families have reached out to the Attorney General, and as superintendents, we're trying to work collaboratively to see if there's anything we can do to help families. And I'll continue to do that and advocate for families in that way. I just can't promise anything to people today.
Are we going to allow new people who have not already signed up for this trip? Are we going to allow new eighth graders and all high school students to sign up, or only the current eighth graders who will be in high school and new eighth graders?
So the space would be limited to no more than 30 student participants. All of the students who were signed up would have preference, and then the trip would be opened up to middle school students first, would be my understanding, and I would assume ninth graders if there's already ninth graders going. But the priority would be for students who were already planning to go on the 2020 trip.
So
How come Kevin Sano was not on this call to kind of talk about this trip a little bit too, since she's been promoting it all these years?
Probably because I spoke with her and the principal and said I would communicate what we talked about with all of you. She might be listening, I'm not sure.
So I'm not clear on the answer to my question. If someone is a senior, junior, or sophomore next year, will they be able to sign up for this trip?
That is not, I don't believe so. I mean, I think if there was a spot open and we wanted to allow that to happen, they could, but the priority would be the middle school and the eighth graders going into ninth grade.
I just want to be on the record. I didn't vote to approve this trip the last, so just want to be on the record for that. So just want to be on the record for that.
You're the worst.
I think, like people have said earlier, we need to give parents as many options as
Right.
possible to recoup or just
Because at least it
help
gives
them
us
out.
another pivot, another chance to pivot and
and give the parents the choice.
right.
And
Or
so I wanna-
another choice. And that's really the only thing we as a school committee can do.
Mhm.
Right? Because everything else is really out of our hands.
And I also want to encourage Julie to continue all of the cooperation you've been doing with all of the superintendents across the state, because I know that this has been an issue with EF, not willing to refund monies to families out in Western Massachusetts, not even willing to talk about it. So, and I think continuing to put some pressure on this company, I find it kind of hard to believe that they've spent that much money to get all of these details in order.
Should I move to make a motion, or are
Yeah,
we?
please.
Okay. I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee approves the middle school, high school trip to Burgos, Spain, in February 2021.
Need a second?
Second.
Jean Lee, thank you. Peter Walsh,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
I will approve this trip, but I stand on the record that I do not believe that we should be internationally sending middle school students because they are not working to provide the money to pay for it.
Stacy Metternich, duly noted.
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Plato is a yes.
I have a question.
Yep.
Did we have a citizens comment period?
So we had a citizens comment period at the beginning.
And nobody asked any. Okay, just wondering. I don't recall. That's all. Because people
No, I
are.
am trying to read and sort of add the discussions on the side into the conversation.
That's all. I saw the same text, and I was just wondering how that factors in this new paradigm we're in.
So I will ask a general relative question here. When is the notification date that teachers have to give us about retiring at the end of the school year?
December 31st.
So, because I know there's a question here just about whether or not Ms. Sano would be, still call her Ms. Sano because she was a Spanish teacher back when I was in school. Ms. Sano was rumored to be retiring. So,
So I would just caution you against discussing a personnel matter in a
right.
public.
But that's why I was trying to sort of go about the roundabout way. So, okay. Next is a discussion about user fees for sports. I am not sure what this is about. I don't remember talking about this.
Well, I asked for it to be put on because some discussion I've had somewhere, and I don't know if it's been an executive session or if it's been in negotiations or policy or where it's been, but we talked about that if the season doesn't happen, people are going to get their money refunded. We're still waiting on the MIAA to make that decision. But it was definitely stated that if we have a reduced season, that there would be some reduction in user fees. And I think we need to kind of let parents know that, but also kind of decide when are we going to refund the money? Because if people are out of work now, getting that $300 and $400 back could be a good thing. So, and how are we going to do that? Like, are we going to issue checks? Are we going to keep the money as a credit for a voucher for some future sport? Like, what is our plan?
So we have a meeting tomorrow morning to talk about that. But obviously, if there is no season, our recommendation would be to fully refund families who have paid. We have about 80 families, I believe, that have paid. Also, if we do have a season, we could look at prorating that user fee. We are right now, because we don't have a definitive communication one way or the other, whether there will or won't be a spring season, are operating as if we're going to, even so much as planning the schedules and thinking about where practices will take place and things like that. I also know that coaches have been putting some workouts together with our athletic trainer and sharing those with students and trying to connect in a variety of different ways that feels right and appropriate based on students who are interested in those sports. So we're just working on it, I guess I would say, and obviously would want to be fair and equitable. So if we're not able to have a season, it doesn't seem appropriate for us to be collecting a user fee. Unlike travel companies, we are able to do that.
And we are always accounting for our costs. The other thing is, do we get a vote in that decision on the MIAA, or is that sort of some like group that's not involved in us?
That'll be dictated.
So our district isn't somehow involved in that. Like Craig doesn't vote on their board or anything like that.
He's not on their board, but he's involved with our Cape Ann League athletic directors and has been communicating. I believe they have meetings twice a week as a Cape Ann League, and working on what kind of it could look like if. And Craig, being the eternal optimist, is still very much hoping that we will have some form of a season, particularly for some of our seniors who this would be their last season to play before graduating.
I think Charlie Baker will squash that very soon, unfortunately. But yeah, I know, especially it would be cool if like there could even just be like a seniors tournament, in August or at Thanksgiving or whatever. But I know it's really, it's disappointing when you have a vision of something and that vision doesn't come true. Yeah.
No, it's heartbreaking. Sorry, the Boston in me just popped out for a second.
So no
heartbreaking
real decision necessarily to make tonight, but we just wanted to have the conversation in a public way for those who have been worrying about that. If that's one worry we can alleviate and take off of people's plates, we're happy to do that.
Great. Awesome. So actually on to some good news. So donations. The first of which is a very, very sizable donation from the Ed Fund, $50,000 grant, excuse me, Does anyone actually want to speak to this, Michelle or
Yeah,
Julie?
I can speak. I
Thanks,
know that.
Michelle.
So Julie, did I steal your thunder? Do you want to speak? Yeah. Our grant committees, the Ed Fund Grant Committee reached out to our leadership team, Dr. Kuchenberger and our leadership team, to ask if there's anything they needed during this pandemic. And they came back to the Ed Fund and requested that some funding for some remote learning and online software, as well as hardware, and some paper packets, all materials that are needed to enhance our students' experience. So the Ed Fund last Thursday via phone approved a grant of up to $50,000 to be given to our district to help with remote learning.
So I would just add that this was such an unexpected, pleasant surprise when we're not getting a ton of good news these days, and will provide some very much needed relief to the district. I mean, we literally are trying to pinch every penny we can to close our budget gap, as you know, and at the same time recognizing that there are some tools that we don't yet have that would really help us better customize, individualize, and personalize our remote learning plans. So we're trying to be very, very thoughtful as a leadership team. We are gathering some ideas, hoping to kind of make an initial request leading up to the kind of April break that we're going to have next week, so that those things can be in teachers' hands and accessible by students as soon as possible. With that also being said, we're also cognizant of the sustainability of any potential new investments, and if it's something that we're going to introduce, how would the district be able to continue that moving forward, as that's the intent of the Ed Fund, is to spark innovation and creativity so that we then can take it on as a district. And looking forward to our FY21 budget reality that is still unknown in terms of what's going to happen at the state level. So there's a lot going into it, and I just want to reassure for the community and the Ed Fund that we're going to be as fiscally responsible with these dollars as we are with our own dollars, and making sure that we're making the best and smartest investments.
Great. So I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts the Hamilton Wenham Ed Fund donation of up to $50,000 for remote learning.
Second.
Peter,
Yes, and a huge thank you.
Michelle Bailey,
Oh, Bailey, thank you. Yes.
Casey Metternich,
Yes, thank you, Hamilton Wenham Ed Fund.
Jean Lee,
Yes, and a huge thank you from me as well.
Ty Primo,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you isn't even enough. It's just amazing to hear some really, really good news in a time where we're not getting much of it.
Okay.
We need it right now, so thank you, Ed Fund.
Right. I was going to say, and we could not afford this right now,
Yes.
and it's needed.
Well, I think what's important to know is, and everyone does, that the Ed Fund is a community endeavor for 30 years. And so it's in perpetuity, it's there forever. And these times are unprecedented. So this is where community steps in and takes care of its own. So happy to be part of it.
Bring back the Halloween party.
Oh, right. We're too old. All right. The next donation, I make a motion, or can I make a motion?
Yep.
Okay. I make a motion. Well, let me just tell you that Helen Przinski Scholarship Fund is another example of Hamilton Wenham at its finest. She was a 1980 graduate, I believe. She was brutally murdered out in Colorado. And for how many years now? 40 years. Her singing mates, her classmates have year in and year out raised money for a scholarship that's given to a senior every year. So we'd like to thank Helene's friends. And it's, I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee approves the Helene Przinski Scholarship Fund donations from Carolyn and Lawrence Hush, Irene Layton, I butchered that name, I'm so sorry, I'll try the next one, Laura Laytonen and Cheryl Walgren, totaling $400, and a donation from Linda Kahn for $100.
Second.
Thank you. Peter Walczyk,
Yes, and thank you.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes, Michelle Bailey.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Dean Lee,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes. Thank you for all who donated. Excuse me. All right, up next is superintendent's report. I will hand it over to you, Julie.
Julie, you're muted. You're muted.
All right, so we kind of covered the remote learning plan a little bit when we were talking about the calendar. Again, I really just wanted to iterate that we're 3 weeks in, and each week we have evolved and improved, and new aspects have been enhanced and added to our plan. We are taking all of the comments in. I'm happy to see people using the feedback feature on the webpage. All of that goes into a spreadsheet, and then as a leadership team, we review them tomorrow. We have 3 leadership team meetings a week. Tomorrow afternoon is sort of our like end of week wrap up. And we like to reflect on some of the successes that are happening, but then also identify challenges and opportunities for continuous growth. And tomorrow we will really be digging into the most recent comments that we received really last night into today. That feedback line has been sort of like amplified. So thank you, community, for giving us your feedback. It really does help. And we want to encourage staff to use it as well. We're trying to be as responsive as we can. And although the likelihood of us pleasing everyone remains low, we're still committed to doing everything we can so long as it's what's best and right for all of our kids. And so our initial plan was to reach out to all of you by the end of this week and get some comprehensive feedback on our remote learning plan. But the survey about April break, I added, a lot of communities only had the yes/no question on their survey, and I added that open-ended to kind of do a 2-for-1 because I know we're all getting inundated with emails. And so that we will use that information as we reflect on our current plan and think about how we can evolve and continue to do better and do more for our kids. I will say our intention is not to replicate school. It is impossible for us to replicate all of the wonderful things that happens by having all of our students and staff together in one place. But our plan is to create choice for families and students. We are strongly recommending more activities, and that will become more clear over the next few weeks as we remain closed. But we will continue to leave it open as choice because we want to be compassionate and empathetic to all of the different ways people are experiencing this global health crisis. One of the things we'll be sending out tomorrow is another communication. And we'll recap what happened in terms of the April break decision because we need to update folks on that. Also remind people, if they didn't hear yet, that MCAS has been canceled for this year. So there will be no MCAS testing. Some superintendents are already advocating for no MCAS testing in 2021, but the commissioner got a good chuckle out of that question the other day. So I don't think we can get too far ahead of ourselves. We're planning to launch a Facebook page, and our IT department has been working on setting that up so it's not my page, but it's a district page, and we can have multiple administrators. But again, understanding that we're all getting bombarded with long emails. Every time I sit down to write a letter to our families, I'm like, this one's going to be short. And then by the time I start thinking of all the things we have to communicate, it ends up being multiple pages. And so we want to try to make information more accessible. We think that maximizing social media, we're active on Twitter, but we want to be more active on Facebook, that we're hoping it'll allow people to get bite-sized chunks of information. We also want to use the power of video to do quick little 30-second, 1-minute updates and use the platform to really tell our story, because a lot of innovation is happening. Teachers are doing a lot of really awesome creative things. And we want you all to know about that. And so we've been really thinking about what's the best way for us to get those stories out to you so that you can have affirmation of our hard work, and you can have that evidence of your return on investment in terms of our high quality teachers and leaders. So we're excited about that. we'll get it started. If you're on Facebook, you'll be able to follow us and like and share our posts. And we'll continue to keep growing. So weekly communication will be the norm. You'll hear from your principals as you have been, your teachers as you have been, and then myself as your interim superintendent. So we're excited about that sort of next step. As we get additional guidance next week, once the governor makes an announcement about what the future holds in terms of school being open or closed, I'm sure the Department of Ed will be right behind him with some refined guidance in terms of their expectations for the work that we're doing on behalf of our students across the Commonwealth. So more information surely to come tomorrow. That'll be in your inbox through Blackboard Connect. Hopefully the Facebook page will be launched tomorrow as well, if not by Friday. And then next week, we'll update you on whatever new guidance we get from the Department of Ed. So that's kind of where we are. We are getting lots of positive feedback and support from families through the feedback form as well. And we're so appreciative of that. It's really great when people acknowledge our teachers working hard and or sharing the way their students respond to some of the virtual ways that staff is reaching out to kids. One of the things we're trying to make sure that we're balancing is online and offline activities. So although your student might not be sitting in front of a computer face-to-face with their students every day, the idea is to have that connection to spark their mindset in terms of a learning mode or school mode, and then having you, with your support, them access some of the learning activities so that they're not getting too much screen time in any one day. I've heard some feedback from some high school students that kids are 3, 4, sometimes more hours on screens consecutively. And I can tell you right now, my vision is like blurry because I've been staring at this screen since 8 a.m. So it's not healthy for any of us to be on screens all the time. So we want to really think about how are we doing some online, some offline as we progress.
Julie, are we going to, or I guess I want to kind of circle back to some comments talking about an option at the high school, whether grading or having the options for a grade or pass fail, because I know a lot of kids have worked really hard for their grades and they only missed a couple of weeks, 3 weeks at the most. Mm-hmm. And to be a pass fail, I mean, you can go down to what, 68, 7% and still pass. And for someone who may have gotten all A's, that's really disheartening to go through all that work and then to be told they can only go to pass fail. And I know that several of these students reached out to the principal, high school principal, and that's what was said. There was no option. And it's really sad.
And seeing some of that feedback today, I did have a conversation with the principal. That wasn't the focus of our meeting that we had scheduled today, but we did touch on it. And I know that he's working on doing a couple models to see what is the impact of if Q3 were to be graded versus not graded, and how does that work on our semester system. So he is reflecting on that and looking at some different options. And so there will be more information to come about that too.
Thank you, because I really think there should be an option for the students and not just give a pass fail like after they've worked so hard, because I know now with this quarter, a lot of kids are barely, 50% are attending at high school classes, and some teachers aren't even keeping up with their students and doing a Zoom. So it makes it, I'm not saying that we need to be up on this quarter. I'm talking last quarter where most of it, they shouldn't be penalized.
May I bring up one point?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. I just want to make sure. The most powerful argument that I heard was that parent feedback said that other districts who are allowing, students the option, if they worked hard, got good grades, heard feedback from colleges that those districts that are allowing the students to count their GPA have an edge over our district because it gives them a higher GPA average. So it's affecting their ability to get into school or be selected to the school of their choice. That to me was the most powerful argument. If other districts are allowing the GPA to be counted and it's a reflection of higher GPA for those students, they have it's giving them an edge to get into the college of their choice. To me, that was the most powerful argument of all the arguments I've heard so far.
Yeah, I agree with both of those things, that if kids have worked really hard this year, to allow them the option to get a grade, I think is important. And plus, for if it matters for college.
And I think
Especially for juniors. I mean, juniors are really struggling
Yeah.
right now. There's going to be a huge change of what happens, of what colleges accept, et cetera.
And I just ask on the, and this is to me, the real question is, on the transcripts, are the quarter grades reported or only the semester grades?
Semester grades.
So to me, it's, how would a, say, B in quarter 3 and a pass in quarter 4 come together to show up on a transcript?
Yeah, so districts are doing all kinds of creative things. And so this is one of the challenges, right? Is when we have local decision, then we also have lots of inconsistency. So some districts are saying quarter 3 counts towards GPA and a pass equals an 80. Other districts are saying that yes, but they're weighting it differently. So some folks are doing just credit, no credit. Some are doing pass, non-passing. Some are letting the students choose between their last quarter grade and pass fail. I don't know exactly how that works out. Some are combining both quarters and left the final grading open. They're going to decide if we're returning after May 4th. So they haven't even made a decision yet. Others are saying that it's credit, no credit, but they're able to make up quarter 3 work till the end of the year if they still needed to do that. Others are saying, yes, they're grading quarter 3 and it counts towards GPA. Quarter 4 is a pass equals 100 and not passing equals a 59. And then that equals 10% of the annual GPA. So I don't even know how GPA is a valid measure if everybody's calculating it in such creative ways, which there's always nuances from district to district, but others are only counting quarters 1, 2, and 3 towards GPA and not counting quarter 4 at all.
I foresee lawsuits.
I don't know how anyone can foresee what's going to happen at the college admissions in
Yeah.
a year and a half. This has thrown everything that has been known to us out the window. So I'm going to say this, having a 4th child as a junior, just make sure that they are sound and safe.
Mhm.
And they will be, I know I sound like a Pollyanna naive, but they will be taken care of. I mean, they will be fine. Trust me, they will be functioning adults. And I know I'm going to get some backlash from that, but just focus on their mental health and that they are safe and everyone in your family is safe and well and financially sound if possible. So that's my 2 cents.
Well said.
I would just,
Go ahead.
this is not really going to affect my kid. We don't focus on grades here really that much, but I do know that there are kids who their identity is wrapped up in them being a good student, and for them to have worked hard and then to have all of that just be the same as the kid who doesn't really turn in his work. It's kind of, sort of invalidating of the work that they did. So I do support the 3rd quarter being counted and then, something different for 4th quarter. I don't know how you calculate GPA. I think there's going to be no way to do it well because everybody's going to do it different and it's going to be a meaningless metric. But, I think there to have been no conversation about it and a decision to have been made without asking anybody probably is what caused this sort of unrest. So, and I know everybody's trying to make a good decision because this happened right at the end of the term and we needed to have decisions. But I think, providing an option is great. If you want to get an A on your report card and you earned it, great. If you don't, fine. But I think we should give people who earned that an opportunity to get that validation. So, oh my goodness.
How does it work? Do you give kids an option of pass, fail, or a grade? I don't understand how, don't you need to have it consistent across every student in the?
I know that's what Suffolk is offering for college.
They
I
do it in
know-
colleges, and they have done it actually in a lot of, they've been doing it in a lot of schools. I've been seeing across the board, at least in California, Pennsylvania, New York.
I don't know how it's gonna work mechanically in the like database, but I know that most colleges are offering some sort of option.
Yeah, they're offering pass fail or to be graded.
Yeah.
Student choice. So yeah, I think there's implications to every decision that we make, right? So what we're trying to do is make the best, most sound evidence-based decisions. And one of the things that the high school principal was working on before I even spoke to him this morning was running some models. So looking for students, depending on, you know, their performance semester 1 and their performance quarter 3, what would happen. The part I think is hard is to then try to quantify, you know, a number for pass fail, because there's a wide range, say from 100 to a 69 or a 59. I don't feel like that at all is accurate. And so why do something that you know mathematically is not accurate? To me, that doesn't communicate anything better to the colleges. And the one thing that colleges tell us repeatedly in K-12 education is that the thing that matters most is our school profile, and how we communicate what that transcript means. And remember, there's thousands of schools across the country that don't use grades at all. They use a competency-based model or a proficiency-based model. And there's colleges who have adapted and accepted that. And they're used to accepting lots of students with lots of different backgrounds, homeschool backgrounds, you know, Waldorf school backgrounds, graded, ungraded. So just to echo what Michelle Horgan said, because I think she said it perfectly, we want our kids to be well-rounded. We want them to be able to communicate their skills and to demonstrate the quality of their experiences to colleges. And it's more than just grades. You know, there's plenty of students who get really good grades, but don't necessarily get into their stretch schools or their dream schools, and vice versa, right? Kids who do because they've been well-rounded and been exposed to a lot of experiences. So we want to keep the whole child in perspective and to think about, you know, what have we created? I think this is a moment for us to also reflect. And if grades have become the motivation or the why behind student learning, like what does that say about, you know, what kind of messages we're sending our kids? And is that really creating lifelong learners who are intrinsically motivated? I mean, I don't know. I think it's a critical reflection time for us. But with that being said, in the immediate moment, we're assessing what the impact will be of different ways of doing it.
Thank you.
May I just bring up one point that's kind of relevant? Two articles just flashed across my screen. One that says 24 states have now closed schools for the rest of the school year, and Rhode Island is emerging as a hotspot.
Rhode Island?
That's what I just saw on CNN. It says Rhode Island's fear is that it's emerging as a hotspot. Just for future thought.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, I was eating dinner. Well, you guys are having that discussion. You know, I think it's also important to remember that, again, we're not unique in this. Every single school, every single school district in the country is going through the same exact thing. One job I do not want, and you guys know how much I love higher ed, is admissions counselor in 2 years. So that
Reading a lot of about COVID-19.
So a lot of essays, entrance essays on COVID-19 and what you did on, this is the new what you did on your summer break.
Yeah, how do you continue with your education during the pandemic?
I did have one question, and I know this question doesn't have an answer yet, but it may be irrelevant to us. But I know that the whatever they want to call that, passing the MCAS in order to get a diploma is still undecided. Do we have any students that are in that situation where they still need to pass an MCAS to get a diploma?
So we don't know yet because our seniors who would have retaken, luckily, they would have retaken, those who needed to, would have retaken that MCAS in January, and we're expecting the scores in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll better understand sort of the status of anyone who falls into that category.
We don't have anybody in limbo yet because we don't have their scores yet.
Right.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
All right, moving on is Washington DC trip. Did we discuss that already?
Not yet. So this was a request just to get an update. So nothing has really changed since March 24th, when Principal Hovey emailed all of the 8th grade families announcing that the trip was for sure not to happen. Again, we're in the situation of what can families recoup in terms of funding and what can they not. So the questions that we received about refunds from families were, the responses to that were communicated out. So the initial $300 deposit that families put down was non-refundable. It had been paid, it had been paid out to secure space with outside vendors like hotel, buses, things like that. And Close Up is, if they were able to secure refunds from those vendors, they were going to pass it on to families. We have not heard anything new since March 24th about that. And that all payments that were made beyond the $300 deposit were scheduled to be refunded. So again, if families purchased the trip insurance, then they have to work directly with the insurance company. That's not even through Close Up, which is the company that organizes this trip, or the school district. And then Close Up was also exploring some non-school based summer programs that the deposit could be applied to if it became safe to travel, or if it was safe to offer those things. So in that in that March 24th communication, there was also a direct message from Close Up that was included, and that was emailed directly to all of our 8th grade families scheduled to go on the trip by the principal. So nothing new with that, but we continue to check in and see if there's new information, and we'll keep the committee and families, of course, apprised if we learn anything new.
Thank you. And then the last thing on the superintendent agenda is a financial update.
Yes, so I'm going to invite Vinny to chime in. This was a request at our last meeting to put this on every agenda moving forward, so that we could, along with the remote learning plan, keep the community apprised as to where we are. Vinny and I, mostly Vinny, are working on really crunching the numbers in preparation for our May 6th school committee meeting, in which he will give you a formal presentation about our year-end forecast. What we're trying to assess right now is, what are the unexpected costs associated with the COVID-19 school closure? What are the unexpected savings associated with the COVID-19 school closure? And Vinny, did you want to add to that?
Yep, just over the past couple of days, me and Julie have started putting together the file for the forecast. We've gone through the 5 different schools, and we're planning on just meeting with the 5 different principals over the next week or so to kind of figure out what remaining funds they have left and what needs they haven't encumbered yet and haven't ran through the purchase order system. But basically how we've set up the forecast, we are assuming that we're not going back to school, but at the same time are crossing our fingers that A, we will in fact come back, and B, that we will at least find out whether or not we're coming back before the next school committee meeting. So the numbers we have for you is as accurate as we can get. But just kind of a little preview, some of the effects of COVID-19 have changed us financially in terms of just our supplies and materials, our special ed contracted services, both our general ed and special ed transportation, as well as what we spoke about last week, the addition of the food service salaries on the general fund, and of course the spring athletic coaches. We've also seen a little decrease in our preschool tuitions that we're taking in, and not an effect directly of COVID, but We are seeing a little shortfall in our Medicaid reimbursements. So we're just trying over the next week or two to compile all of this different information to at least give you the most accurate numbers we can to help guide your decisions over the next few months.
And on May 6th, we will ask you to reconsider some decisions that we've talked about in the past. Now that the MOA is signed with the HWEA, we want to start to think about other hourly employees outside of that bargaining unit, if we will be able to sustain, payment or not. We may or may not be able to make a decision about other stipended positions like the spring coaches based on information that we learn between now and then. At the same time, we are also revisiting FY21 and sort of preparing for the worst and hoping for the best, if you will, as we know that the state is projecting, I think, a $5 billion revenue shortfall for FY21 already. So one of our big questions is, what impact will that have on Chapter 70? Not to mention the way our individual community members are being impacted by this health crisis in terms of job loss and sickness and death. And what might that mean in terms of our FY21 budget? On Monday, I did join the joint two towns Board of Selectmen meeting along with Michelle Horgan and Michelle Bailey. I think Ty was on the call as well. And they have tentatively earmarked June 20th for a town meeting as best case scenario, and then June 25th for the town election. So we're, again, planning for the best and hoping that that will be able to happen. But we also know that if we are not able to hold a town meeting prior to the end of the year, June 30, that what we'll be looking at for July 1 is a minimum 1/12 budget. The commissioner will, I believe it's the commissioner who will have authority to allocate additional funding above 1/12. I'm not quite sure on what the process will look like for that. But then we would remain in a 1/12 budget until we're able to have a town meeting and vote, have a budget voted by our taxpayers. Of course, what that means for the school district is that we have to start preparing for non-renewals and reductions in force with an unknown budget in place. Typically by now, we would know whether our budget had passed or not. So we have a May 1st deadline to make a good faith effort to communicate with staff if we think there may be reductions in force. And then we have technically by contract until the last Friday in May to notify individuals in writing if they will not be invited back for whatever reason. So we're working on that, and we're making sure that we have sort of all of our ducks in a row so that when we have the right information to make those decisions, we're prepared to make the most sound evidence-based decisions.
To touch back on something I sort of asked earlier, that December guideline for notifying the district about
Retirement.
plans for retirement. Who is that? Our own policy? Like, could we open that back up? People who maybe were thinking about retiring next year might want to say that, because that's always the potential for a cost savings in a positive light, right? Have we thought about that at all?
Anyone can retire at any time. They don't, the calendar, the contractual language just allows for a additional pay if they notify us by December 31st. And there's a formula that calculates what that additional pay would be. But I mean, Vinny could say tomorrow that he's going to retire effective June 30. And he has every right to do that, so long as he thinks it's best for him. And then
we put dots in his head.
we just help him along the way. So anyone can choose to retire at any time. It's just there's a bonus, if you will, an additional pay bonus if they notify us by December 31st.
Right.
They would not qualify for that if they notified us outside of that timeline. And that's really just so that we can adequately budget for what that might be.
Right.
Can we extend that budget offer? I mean, the bonus offer? Is that something you're thinking about, David? Is that what you
Have that kind of money.
Right. Well, I mean, but it's like, do you though?
My paper clips.
But if we don't have to replace that person is what I'm saying necessarily.
Or you're replacing them at the lower step is,
Yeah,
how
the
we
lower
get
step.
that cost savings. Yeah, I'm just wondering if we're looking at everything, maybe that's sort of a, quick pivot you guys want to throw into a spreadsheet to see if it's worth. Who knows if anyone would even do it, but if this doesn't clear up over the summer and we're remote learning next year and you were planning on that being your last year, or you're gonna do like one more year, I don't think that's the year you were really thinking about having, and then you might want to reconsider. I'm not putting any thoughts in anyone's head. I'm just sort of trying to think of it from a budget standpoint.
So while we're just thinking about things out loud, I would just add the impact that would have on the school system, especially in an environment where we may not be able to onboard someone in an effective way and or recruit someone who would be skilled enough to do that.
I've been doing flipped lessons for years now.
Mihaela, strike that from the record. I never said anything.
It's like, I was reading something the other day that said, like, with every new technology comes a new challenge. So like with planes, there comes plane crashes. With, automobiles, there becomes, and it's just kind of like in this situation, it's everything you want to just go slow to kind of go far with some of the ideas that we have, just to say like, okay, let's play this out. What if that happened? What would be the implications? And that's what 90% of our conversations sound like these days.
Great. Well, thank you for that update. I know it's a continuously moving target. And then you don't even, I don't even know. I really don't.
The last thing I would say, David, is just if there's one thing I could say to the community about this staff and this leadership team, if you're doubting for 1 second whether or not people are working, I can promise you that you are getting more than your money's worth out of these people. Not only when they're physically sitting in front of their computers, Zooming with each other, then they get off a Zoom to have a sub Zoom that leads into another Zoom. We are maximizing that free tool, but also the way they're thinking about their kids and the emotional well-being of them, and not just them, but their families. I mean, we have our IT department literally going door to door and delivering devices to people. The work that Accord Food Pantry is doing with our our nutrition director to make sure that families have meals. I mean, you should have nothing but pride for the work that your team of educators are doing, and not just in the name of our kids, but the whole community. It really is remarkable. We should all feel proud about that.
You can't
Thank
say it
you.
enough. So thanks, Julie. All right. Up next, during these crazy times, it's sort of a good segue that, we are all putting in more hours than any of us signed up for. And as such, Stacy Metternich has just said that she hasn't been able to, can't really keep up with the needs of being the school committee secretary at this point. So I just really wanted to thank her for all the work that she has done this year, and just understand that it is really crazy. And I appreciate that. And it just sort of want to move that Michelle Horgan, I think you're the currently the vice secretary, right? That I think we just sort of bump you up on the pay scale.
Super,
So
thank you. Great.
do we need a probably
Timing is
Didn't have
perfect.
a better school committee member.
We need to vote her in as
Yeah.
secretary, and we need to vote someone in as vice secretary. We need those positions. It's a voted in position.
Yeah, I know. I was just about to do that. Thank you, though.
Performance, Michelle.
So
The better you work, the more work you get. Performance punishment, it's called.
Thanks.
So Peter nominated. Do we have a second?
Second.
Michelle. I guess, Michelle, do you accept the
They're
nomination?
not coming off. What do you want me to do?
Remember payback. That's all I'm going to say,
Yeah.
guys. Remember
That's
that.
okay. We'll make Jean the vice secretary.
Yes, because he's never right. Yes, I accept.
Great, thank you.
And
Stacy
thank
Meredith.
you, thank you. Wait, thank you, Stacy, for doing all your work, the work that you did. Set a good
Yes.
example.
Thank-
Yes, 3 years. So 3 years. So I'm like, okay, but
Right,
had some
I'm
other
ready.
issues
It's like-
come up.
I am so ready to not be chair anymore. Like, so ready, so ready. Stacy Meredith,
Maybe you all need a break.
right? So I get 3
Yes.
days this weekend. Jean Lee, Stacy, that was. I mean to talk over you. Jean Lee,
Yes.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Bill Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan.
Can I abstain?
Yep. There we go. David Polito is a yes. Thanks for stepping up, Michelle. Michelle, I think you should nominate someone to be your vice secretary.
Let's see. It doesn't matter. No,
So,
I think, can we wait till after the,
oh
it's
no,
just-
I mean, we're gonna have to revote new people
Oh, that's
anyway.
right.
This is just
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of until
Oh, yeah,
whoever
I'm
comes
voting
in.
Jean
This is-
Lee. I'm voting Jean Lee
There
as my
we go.
assistant secretary.
Second.
So-
Second.
You can't say no. So.
Michelle
Did you
Bailey,
accept the
second.
nomination?
Michelle Bailey seconded.
Yeah, I heard that. Thank you.
Do you accept, Jean?
You know, this happened when the first meeting I attended when I was nominated to fill the seat. I didn't know what the heck was happening. Yes, I'll do it for the however many I have left. 3
So-
meetings left.
3 years. There are 3.
3 meetings.
Well, the good news is currently the legislature says that we have to have the election prior to the end of June.
So,
Yeah,
Well, what-
I watched the recording, so I was, believe me, I'm counting the meetings.
Peter Walsh,
Yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Oh, yeah.
Jean.
Ralph Cramden just threw him under the bus.
Right. So-
I'll abstain myself.
all right, and David Polito's a yes. Thank you for stepping up. Excuse me, I do appreciate it. Excuse me. And then the other thing we wanted to do is we just wanted to open up. Currently, Michelle Horgan signs the warrants. Is it just Michelle?
We voted in 2 other people as backup. David, you're one, and I'm the other.
Okay. So there, the thought was,
So that was my mistake. I thought it was just Michelle and just you, David, and I felt uncomfortable with there only being 2.
yeah, 'cause I thought it was Carrie also, Michelle.
But maybe
So-
if 3.
No, it wasn't Carrie, it was me.
Okay. So you think 3's fine, or actually one thing?
was
Sorry.
gonna I don't know, but we have to have one person be well and available.
Right.
And if what we did before was that it could be any one of us, and then I don't know. Eventually, then we decided it was only the 3, which is fine, whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like we don't know what's going to happen over the course of the next couple of
Right.
weeks.
So, yeah, no, and that's what I was thinking too. I do remember at one point, excuse me, we didn't want to have everybody, but I can't remember why. One thing I did want to ask Vinny while we're sort of on this topic is, does the district actually have DocuSign that that you can send this out and just have everything being done via DocuSign?
The only problem with that is sometimes those stacks of invoices are almost 500 deep. There's attachments on them, receipts.
Okay.
So it's pretty difficult to make them a PDF.
So how have we been doing?
We have the doors open for Michelle, and she kind of comes with a lot of distancing between her and
Gloves.
signs.
Mask.
We are willing to kind of set a table up outside if anyone isn't comfortable coming in to review them, but right now it is still
I
being
think
done inside.
cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
And
As
Vinny,
long
just
as
for-
I'm sorry,
Right.
as long as I'm healthy, I'm comfortable going in. It's completely social distancing at its
Right.
best. So I'm fine as long as I stay upright.
And then just maybe even for moving forward, maybe it doesn't have to happen now with only a few meetings left in this current setup. But Vinny, do you see any problem with moving forward, sort of just having the entire committee be able to sign those warrants and just have us all as the warrant committee? There was something Jeff didn't like about it, and I can't remember what it is now off the top of my head.
I think it was just that who do you call? He wanted like a designated
Yeah.
person for it to always be, so it wasn't just who do you call today.
Yeah.
So I'd rather it be a list of people specifically, so
Okay.
we're not chasing random people down. But I do like the idea of a fourth person in case 3 go down. But
Hopefully
I
that
didn't realize there was a
happen.
third. I thought there was only 2. I didn't realize.
No, I did too when Michelle, excuse me, said it.
So I think 3's sufficient. I mean, I would hopefully say that within 2 weeks, 3 people don't get sick at once. But
Right.
it's always better safe than sorry if you want to add another person.
Right.
What you could do, David, would be just to take all 7 committee members and just sort of rank them like a phone tree, right?
Yeah.
The order, and then that way we're prepared if anything horrible happens. But hopefully we won't need to use it.
So, no, I think that's a good idea. So why don't we, I guess, make a motion to sort of put everybody on, and yeah, maybe we can just list off the order here and just figure it out.
Okay.
Well, if we make
Michelle, go ahead. I'm
we
sorry,
put
what?
everybody on, Michelle Horrigan can be first, right?
Yeah.
And then Penny can just pick numbers out of the hat and list them on down.
So, yeah.
So I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee become available as a body to sign warrants at the discretion of Vinnie Leone.
I'm gonna literally write your names down right here and just pick them. So
I don't know if I think we want to
I don't know.
rephrase that.
Yeah,
Just
I don't know if
because
you
you
want me
said,
to. Yeah.
oh no, that I don't care. The more just the fact that you said as a body. I think the motion should be
Like
Just-
any member.
member
Okay.
can.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So I don't have to amend that, right? I just make a motion that any member of the Hamilton Wenham School Committee is available to sign warrants.
Just leave it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Stop.
You want to explain to Ty what he's signing up for? Because I don't think he signed warrants before.
Oh, so,
So, we'll put them at the bottom of the list.
right. Twice a month, you need to go to District 5 School Street and sign warrants for the district to pay bills and salaries and everything.
You're just approving like the transfer of funds. And
And you-
again,
And we could all go to prison if it's not done correctly. That too.
Correct.
We could.
Sorry. We absolutely could.
no pressure. No pressure. Did we get a second?
We
Second.
did.
Okay.
I just
Uh,
hope the prisons aren't full of school committee members who signed warrants wrong.
They are not.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Michelle Bailey, yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes. And then Vinny Leone is going to give us
I got
who
it.
our number 2 is.
Stacy Metternich.
Number 3 will be
Gene.
All-star crew. Number 4.
Peter.
Number 5.
Not here.
Ty.
So, well, we said a tie could be number 7.
All right, we'll put him. All right.
Sure good.
Michelle B.
And then I'm number 6. Great.
Yep, you do.
Thanks, guys. All right, and now I believe we are just at the consent agenda, right? No, I'm sorry. Subcommittee meetings. Capital and Finance, next meeting's May 5th, correct?
Yeah, so we have, we're going to be discussing basically a look at our FY21 budget, given in the light of what the two town boards have been discussing and also the financial situation. So we'll have to revisit our 21 budget.
So, yeah, no, that stinks, but I get it.
I will say though, during this time, if what the staff and administrators are doing, if it doesn't demonstrate the value of what they provide on a day-to-day basis to working parents, I don't know what else would, honestly. It's like, this is what your taxes go to. If working parents are having such a difficult time, I'm a former teacher and I'm having a hard time getting my kids to do this work. I work in an educational organization. I'm still having a hard time. Like, if this doesn't demonstrate the value of what the school districts provide and not just education, but social and emotional support to students, I really don't know what else would. This is why you pay the taxes. This is why the budget is what it is. I'll just say that.
Yeah, we've got to communicate that somehow, because Julie and Michelle and I think Ty were on a call on that Monday night you talked about, and a comment was made that was just so disheartening. It's so out of touch too. So I'm hoping that at our meeting on the 5th, we can come up with some type of strategy to get that message home. So
Right.
Thanks.
No, I think the messaging really needs to change out as soon as we sort of figure out, it's tough because we have to just figure out how we're even going to be voting. What's this going to look like, right?
The very first post on that Facebook page should be a meme like, hey, vote yes, or you're homeschooling next to.
I'll get on Facebook just to do that.
Desperate times call for desperate measures, Gene. You want
That's right.
Right. We could get Gene
My
to join
wife's on
Facebook.
Twitter. Who thought, right?
All right. So thank you, Dean, and thanks, Capital Subcommittee. Policy Subcommittee, we have a bunch of second readings. Excuse me. Do you want to take it, Michelle?
Sure. So we met today. We'll meet again on May 20th. One of the things that we met on today is our religious observation policy. So on May 20th, we're going to ask that we have a public hearing. So we'll invite the public, parents who are interested in commenting on the religious observation policy it'll be made available in advance and they can make comments, and then we'll have our first reading, and we'll then take comments and first reading back and evaluate. But tonight we have the 3 policies that we read last week, 2 weeks ago, related to the memorandum of understanding regarding the turf field. They all have to do with like naming of facilities and collecting money and memorials. And then we have the G section, which is all of the stuff about personnel. And it includes that one policy that would have us sort of it would authorize us to approve the principals' contracts when they're hired, which then puts some work back into the policy working group to come up with a matrix of options or some sort of standardized contract. So do we want to just make motions to approve them, and then we can discuss if anybody still had questions?
Okay. Do I need to make separate motions for each of them?
Yes. And the other thing I want to also to sort of say is the 3 we're approving, and they're going to be like approved tonight, so that validates those policies so that they can be incorporated in the MOU. The ones that are in big bunches are being approved in form, because we will approve the entire policy manual all at once, perhaps in the fall.
Okay.
Okay, so help me, walk me through this if I make a misstep here. So I make a motion that the Hamilton Wyndham School Committee approves school committee policy G,
Section G in form.
section G in form.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, then I'll move for a vote. Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Dean Lee,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes.
Okay. I make a motion that the Hamilton Wyndham School Committee accepts school committee policy H in form.
Second.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes.
I make a motion that the Hamilton Wyndham School Committee accepts school committee policy KCD in form.
No.
Sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
KCD
No,
These are the ones that
KCD.
are,
Okay, sorry. KCD, gifts and contribution in
Now.
just gives it.
now.
No, so-
Second.
Great. Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Dean Lee,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
David Polito is a yes.
Okay, I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts school committee policy FFA memorials now.
Second. Second. Michelle Bailey.
So, Jean Lee,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes.
I make a motion that the school committee, Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts school committee policy FF, naming facilities now.
Second.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
David Polito is a yes. Excuse me. Next meeting date you have is April 15th. That's wrong because that was today. But we don't need that right now.
Well, it was because we had it today.
Yep. So the negotiations subcommittee, did I miss another meeting last week?
You did. You did.
So text me. God knows I'm home. So I don't know why it's not. I'm trying to, I won't even get into it. I apologize.
Write it on
Okay.
your fridge.
Michelle has the notes, so you can get
There
up to
all the
speed.
time.
So we are continuing our evaluation of the teacher's contract. And we're moving is May 5th at 4:30, excuse me, 4:30.
Sounds good. Oh, geez. And now, moving on to the consent agenda. We have the warrants and the minutes are separated.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept, the Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts the warrants as presented.
Sorry. Okay, did
You
anyone want to
ask
pull any
if any,
minutes?
yeah.
What was that?
I just asked if anyone wanted to pull any minutes first.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to pull the minutes of January 8th,
I'm sorry, we're on vouchers. We're not on minutes yet.
and I don't want to pull anything.
Okay. So, this is for the vouchers.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, can you make another motion,
Yeah,
Michelle?
I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee accepts the warrants as stated in the consent agenda.
Second.
You also need to say that there can be no changes.
Then there can be no changes.
Second.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Gene Lee. You're on mute. Need to hear you, bud.
Yes.
Sorry. Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
David Polito. Yes. I almost didn't answer myself. Does anyone want to pull any of the minutes?
I'd like to pull January 8th.
Okay, we'll pull January 8th. Can I get a motion on the other two,
Mhm.
Michelle?
I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee approve the prior meeting minutes from October 2nd, 2019 and February 5th, 2020.
Second.
Gene Lee,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito's a yes. Michelle, do you want to discuss the January 8th minutes?
So in reading them, I noticed that most of the motions were not seconded. When I checked with Mahala, she said that was the way the meeting was run. Robert's Rule of Order requires a second of a motion, so I'm not really sure now what happens with that. So
I thought I remember seconding these.
Was it that they couldn't be heard?
I can't imagine.
Mahala said she did, she reviewed it, because I was on this email chain, and that she didn't recall there being seconds.
I just worry if they weren't audible because it was a large group in the way that the meeting was set up, right? Was that a workshop? Or no, that wasn't.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I definitely was not at the meeting. That's what I know. So I was reading them just to catch up on what was going on. But
Oh, this is the budget one, right?
Yeah, these had to have been seconded. There's no way we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
I
we need
can't
to go
imagine
back.
this is-
Then we need to go back and put those in because a
Okay.
lot of those motions do not show seconded them.
All right, I go take a look at those a little bit closer. So we'll just table that. Any topics for future meetings?
I have a couple. First, this is sort of like an announcement, really, but I just want to remind people that tomorrow Wenham is having the COVID-19 Health Forum. Those are available both at 3 and 7 on Zoom. The other thing is that both Brad Hill and Bruce Tarr are happy to make themselves available on May 5th to meet with us, the boards of selectmen of both towns, and then anybody else we might want to invite. I know, the police might want to come, DPWs might want to come to get an update on what's going on at the State House, especially of what Julie just talked about, the shortfall of $4 billion. So they're proposing 4/7 on the 5th. So I just wanted to get a sense of if that is a date that would work for us. That's a Tuesday and also a day you're supposed to be drinking a margarita, but it's up to you.
What date is it?
It's May 5th. It's a Tuesday.
Oh, gotcha.
Cinco de Mayo.
Michelle, I mean, in the earlier email, it was 4, but you're saying now it's 4 and 7? There's 2 times?
They've come back and said they could make 7 work if 4 doesn't. So I just wanted to get a sense of, does our committee feel like that's a day that's workable for us? And if it is, do you have a preference for 4 or 7?
We were supposed to have a meeting at 7 o'clock as planned for our capital planning finance work group.
And negotiations is at 5 or
4:30.
4:30.
Right. So
But we could.
So can we do another day?
So I gave them a choice of 7 days, and this is the one they said that worked. So I could, but then it would be later in May.
I would just offer the idea of maybe adjusting the negotiation since there's nothing time sensitive and
Oh, yeah.
ensuring the times are available.
That's no problem for us.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and then I don't know about everyone else, but I like the idea of earlier to be done sooner. But
that's for work for other people. I'm feeling like there's a majority here. Like I can do it, David can do it, Michelle can do it. Peter, I don't know if you can do Tuesday at 4 though.
Yeah, that's fine.
I definitely can't do it,
Okay,
but
we'll record it for sure.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so I would go back for, say, our preference is 4 on the 5th.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't hear any major objections, so.
Okay. And I just would like to point out that I just wrote this down. Bruce and Brad have been like the representatives forever. And I just wrote down their names, Tar and he. I was like, oh my God, that's like, they're like the Tar Heels. That's kind of cool. They
No,
should
North
have
Carolina.
shirts like with like an M.
They must have heard that one before. Somebody had, yeah.
I think we're
The
good.
only thing I want to say that is it for a future meeting is just that. So Haley just wrote a note that I just really, the one really good thing about these Zoom meetings is actually having all these people joining us. And I really thought that having the comment section side was really helpful because we could actually get input from people and just sort of some real time data going on that I think really helped this. You know, and just sort of looking at the positive, I like this, and you know, let's do an even better job just communicating how welcome that the people are at the meetings. That, you know, we talk about real stuff here that affects people, and then hearing directly from the people that we're affecting will only help us do our job better. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us, even though I know most of them are signed out at this point. I want it on the record that I said it. But just really that it helps.
I've
Dave-
told you people are watching at home. You did not believe me, but they do watch at home.
So,
May I just, did anybody see Mahala's
yeah, I did just see that.
comment?
So because I thought I had actually read something similar to that earlier, that but now ever since I messed up with that lawyer on what the moving into executive session was, I don't trust anything I read anymore at first glance. So
Okay.
We all make mistakes.
right. All right. So if that's it, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham School Committee adjourn at 8:44 p.m.
Second.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Casey Metternich,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
Ty Primo,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
and David Polito's a yes. Vinny, Julie, thank you for everything you guys do. And really just keeping us up and running in this crazy, crazy time. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate both of you. Thanks for everybody. Stay safe. I need you all, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
It's not even the weekend. It's only Wednesday. I have no idea what day it is. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
Thank you. Good night.